Hey nerds, what's up? Today we'll be discussing the book This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal, El-Mohtar, and Max Gladstone. See you after the jump. So I found this book last year while searching for a book to read for a book challenge I was doing, which was I had to read, or one of the challenges was I had to read a book published that year. So I was looking through Nebula awards and I came across this book. And honestly, I pretty much bought it just for aesthetic purposes. I really loved the cover and I loved the title, This Is How You Lose the Time War. I felt like it was very intriguing. So I didn't honestly have very high expectations of this book. I seriously bought it to look it on a shelf. I do that sometimes, but I was super pleasantly surprised with this one. It's a romance, which I usually avoid at all costs, but again, I was just like, well, I'll try it. But it ended up being really good, and it was one of those books that I kind of thought about a lot after finishing it, and I'm not sure why. So I'm going to read you the flap just so you know what it's about before we dig in and discuss it. In the ashes of a dying world, Red finds a letter marked, "Burn before reading," signed Blue. So begins an unlikely correspondence between two rival agents in a war that stretches through the vast reaches of time and space. Red belongs to the Agency, a post-singularity technotopia. Blue belongs to Garden, a single, vast consciousness embedded in all organic matter. Their pasts are bloody and their futures mutually exclusive. They have nothing in common, save that they're the best and they're alone. Now, what began as a battlefield boast grows into a dangerous game, one both Red and Blue are determined to win. Because winning's what you do in war, isn't it? So I actually think the flap doesn't do it a ton of justice. I feel like it sounds like a classic enemies to lovers story, which honestly I usually hate those because I think they tend to glorify messed up relationships, or they're unbelievable, or they're mean-spirited, but that actually doesn't happen in this book at all because Red and Blue aren't as much rivals themselves personally as the factions they work for are rivals, which does change the dynamic a little bit, and it's more about two separate professionals really admiring each other's work. And so as that develops, it's really good, and it avoids a lot of the tropes that enemies to lovers has, which I really appreciated. I also feel like time travel is really tricky to write about. Most time travel movies or books I feel like don't do very well because people see a lot of loopholes in them, and there's always just kind of things that bug us about them. They usually get bad reviews. What's interesting about this book is it really avoids that by using what I like to call the soft time travel. I'm a big subscriber to Brandon Sanderson's view of soft versus hard magic. If you haven't read that, I'll link it below. It's a great article to read. But this, if you have read it, is what I consider soft time travel. They don't try to explain it, and they don't go into the nitty-gritties. And in fact, that's what makes it an unusual fantasy. It's about time travel, but time travel is really just the backdrop to the character's story. It plays a purpose as far as any setting would play a purpose, like ancient Egypt, or the United States, or Canada, or whatever fantasy land. It's just a setting. And I hadn't seen that happen before, and I think it was a very unique twist on time travel, that it wasn't the heart of the book. There was no like moment where it was that big fantasy scene. It wasn't. The whole book is just letters from Red to Blue and Blue to Red, and because of that, it's really character focused, which I think is really interesting when it comes to time travel. Best of all, it is mostly the kind of romance that I really enjoy, which is a very friendship-based romance. They had a lot of respect for each other, and their personalities meshed really well, and it wasn't over the top and where you're like, why do these characters even like each other? Which I really appreciate, and I don't find a lot in books, just in general. The one thing I didn't like, and which kind of knocked it down just a peg for me, is at the end it does get a little cheesy. I really hate when characters are just overly confessing their love, like, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you so much. Just a personal pet peeve. I just don't think people talk like that, or if they do, I just don't know those people. And so that was one part I didn't quite love. But overall, I did love this book. For me, it's a 4 out of 5 stars, and I know it's winding down to the end of June, which is Pride Month, but this is a great book if you want to get one more book in before the end of Pride Month, because it is a love story between two women. So that also makes it stand out just a little bit. If you've read the book, let me know what you thought of it. Did you like it as much as I did? How did you feel about the time travel in particular? Did you feel like I did, that it wasn't really explained, but it worked for the story? And how did you feel about the romance? Did you like it? Did you not? Let me know in the comments. And if you liked this video, please subscribe. And if you want to see what books I'm currently reading and more reviews, check me out on Instagram, which I'll also link below. See you next time. Bye.